All praise to the Most High Yah, Shabbat Shalom. Man, today you are in for a treat as we get deeper, as we strengthen our walk, gaining understanding. Today's Sabbath teaching is not topical, okay? This teaching today goes hand in hand with the book of Job. This teaching today is gonna take you deeper than you will ever be able to get on first day worship, Sunday sun worship. It's very key that in our walk we search out the truth. And today we're coming out of the apocryphals, which many Christians say that the Most High hasn't led them. And I would challenge that you cannot have a complete understanding of the true workings and the true faith that Job had without reading the fullness of how he was tested. Now, the reason the Apocrypha is so key, is because when we look at where most people start off, or what is commonly taught in Sunday sun worship, you read about Job going to, Hasatan going to and from heaven and earth, and the Most High giving up his servant Job. But today we're gonna backtrack and get to the very beginning to find out what kind of man Job was, because we're not gonna see, too many men like Job. It was more than servitude. It was the life that he lived in pursuing righteousness that set him apart. Thank you for tuning in. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. Remember the day of Sabbath to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah Elohake. In it you shall not do any work, you nor your son, nor your daughter, your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor the stranger that is within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Praise Yah, all praise to the Most High Yah that you made it. Due to your belief, you made it to this day of rest. There's plenty of people out there that say they believe, that say that they've got Messiah, that say that they got salvation, but they don't have an obedience. They don't have a true, genuine love to be able to keep his commandments. So we're going to go to the book of Job. You got your Bibles turned there. Shout out the Covenant Homestead. Hey, keep up the good work. Those videos be firing me up. Let me get there. So I encourage you to read Job, and pair this with the Testament of Job. Okay. And I'm going to read to you the first chapter. Okay. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared Elohim and avoided evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance was also 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 she-asses and a very great household. So this man was greatest of all men of the East. So here you have a very wealthy a very rich man. This man was not only wealthy in his possessions, but you look at the life that he lived. He was an agricultural man. He was a true shepherd, not just in lip service, but the life that he lived. And verse 4, and his sons went and feasted in their houses, everyone his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered ascending smoke offerings according to the number of all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed Elohim in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. So you think about this level of servitude, making sure that he gave an offering on behalf of his sinful children. Now there was a day when the sons of Elohim came to present themselves before Yah, and Satan came also among them. And Yahweh said unto Satan, from whence come you? Then Satan answered Yah and said, from going to and from in the earth, from walking up and down it. And Yah said unto Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth? Man, that's a pretty weighty statement that the Most High Yah made. There is none like him. A perfect and upright man, one that fears Elohim and avoids evil. Then Satan answered Yah and said, does Job fear Elohim for naught? Have not you made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and substance is increased in the land. But put forth your hand now and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. So when we get into the testament of Job, we're going to see what made, the journey of his test so rare. And Yah said unto Satan, behold, all that he has in your power, only upon himself put not forth your hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yah. And there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the asses feeding beside them. And the Shava'im fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I am only escaped alone to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of Elohim is fallen from heaven and has burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the territory made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels and have carried them away, ye, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I am only escaped alone to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I am escaped alone to tell you. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshiped. Man, I want you to think about prior to you being born again, prior to you being filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, prior to your mind being renewed, prior to you have any understanding of what true worship was. Think about the tribulations, the trials, the struggles that you were enduring. Put yourself in these shoes of Job and say, man, my kids have just been taken away from me. Job didn't blaspheme. Man, Job got on his knees, fell to the ground and worshiped. Verse 21, and said, naked came out of my mother's womb, and naked I shall return hither. Yah gave, and Yah has taken away. Blessed be the name of Yah. He had lost his family. In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged Elohim foolishly. Let's keep going. Let's move to Matthew chapter 19, verse 16 through 24. All right, verse 16. And behold, one came and said unto him, good Rabbi, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? So when you think about when we're right here, this was a very wealthy man that asked this. What shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, why do you call me good? There is none good but one, that is Elohim. But if you will enter into life, guard the commandments. He said unto him, which Yahshua said, you shall do no murder. You shall not break wedlock. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and your mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I want to keep in mind that a lot of people think that Hamashiach is bringing forth a new set of commandments. But what he is doing is meeting this rich young man where he is. Therefore the statement, meeting somebody where they are. The young man said unto him, all these things I have guarded from my youth up. But what else am I lacking? What else is there that I can do? I know these. I've done these. Yahushua said unto him, if you will be perfect, go and sell all that you have and give to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven. And come and follow me. Man, that's very, very important, because we're going to see a true testimony of Job actually doing this. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possession. Man, all of this stuff that we spend our time doing before being born again is not going to profit you in the end. It's not going to profit you. When them death angels come for you, you're not going to be able to get a U-Haul or a Ryder truck and a trailer and put that car on. You're not going to be able to pack away all your trinkets, all of your precious possessions, all of the things that you may in a former life have boasted and bragged about, took pride in. Then said Yahushua unto his Talmudim, amen, I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. Shall hardly. Man, you let it be told by the Christians, they will tell you that it's impossible. Job proved that wrong. That a rich man shall hardly, scarcely enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again, I say unto you, it is easier for a rope to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of Elohim. Man, when you get into the KJV, it's going to say for a camel. That's G2574. camelos, of Hebrew origin, H1581, a camel. H1581, gamal, apparently from H1580, a labor-bearing camel, to carry. H1580, gamal, to treat a person well or ill, to ripen, to wean, bestow on, deal bountifully, to recompense, requite, reward, serve, mean, yield, to give, to do, to show anyone. Okay, so he's letting you know, just in this passage right here, he met the man where he was. And the man did everything, but it was almost like his walk was stagnated. His walk was stagnated. So in order to get the momentum back, Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, charged him to sell all that he had and to give to the poor. Think about if Messiah charged you and said, hey, you know, that house, your kids, your wife, your job, your money that you're saving up in that bank account, you've done all this that I've asked you to do, but this one thing, I want you to forsake all that you have. This is why this is so rare. This is why it's hard for the wealthy. Think about the attachment as them dollars start increasing in your bank account. The Most High Yah is blessing you, hoping that in them blessings you don't grow further away from him. This young man obeyed all up until this point. He says, I know this and I've done that. Well, here's your moment. Let's put your righteousness to the test. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9 through 12. Let me get there. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows. So you have to think, when the rich young ruler was given an opportunity to prove himself worthy, to prove himself righteous in front of the true Messiah, what happened? He was coveting, was holding on to, didn't want to let go of his possessions, not knowing that them possessions wouldn't profit him in the end. First Timothy chapter 6, verse 17 through 19. Charge them that are rich in this world, that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living Elohim, who gives us richly all things to enjoy. What are you doing with your blessing? Is the Most High Yah blessing you and it's making you prideful, making you haughty, high-minded, neck stiff? And he's blessing you so you can enjoy these things righteously, not be of the people of the world. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 4 through 5. Labor not to be rich. You got to think about. I remember before starting this walk, Oftentimes my mind was money driven. Man, that'd be a great opportunity to make some money. Man, this right here is gonna be what makes me. If I could only get that job. I wasn't thinking about no soul salvation. Growing up in Christianity, growing up in world religion, all these denominations was just simply saying everything that sounded good. Lying lips. I was laboring to be rich. Most High Yah was blessing me the whole time with his mercy. Could have took me out long ago. Labor not to be rich. Cease from your own wisdom. Will you set your eyes upon which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away as an eagle towards heaven. Today, I want to tell you, do not let the riches distract you. Do not let the riches distract you. Man, I'm thankful that I now can receive a blessing and not be prideful, be humble, not distracted, not moved off course, not led astray. All right, the Testament of Job. If you have the complete 54 book apocrypha, you know, it's going to be page 497. If you don't have that, you can find this on the internet and just Google the Testament of Job. There's a couple different websites that'll pop up and take you to it. Okay. Starting at chapter 1. One day he became sick and knew that he would have to leave his bodily abode. He called his 7 sons and his 3 daughters together and spoke to them as follows. Form a circle around me, children, and hear. I will relate to you what the Lord did for me and all that happened to me. So now we're gonna get the full story of what happened. And it seems like during the canonization of the Bible, we see that the 14 books that are not in this current King James Version, they was in there in 1611. They was in there all the way up until 1885, 1884. But today we're getting deeper in the books that they say lost in the Ruach HaKodesh has allowed you to find. It's like they want to keep you on the surface. They don't want your walk to be strengthened. They don't want you to be concrete. Verse 3, for I am your father Job. Know then, my children, that you are the generation of a chosen one, and take heed of your noble birth. For I am the son of Esau. My brother is Nahor, and your mother is Daniah. I have become your father by her. For my first wife died with my other 10 children in a bitter death. Hear now, children, and I will reveal to you what has happened to me. I was a very rich man living in the East. So now we see that modern day, this is what the worldly folk would call a high value man, an alpha male. In righteousness, we're going to learn how he was high value to the Most High. A very rich man in the East, in the land of Uz. And before the Lord had named him Job, I was called Jobab. The beginning of my trial was thus. Near my house there was an idol of one worshipped by the people, and I saw burnt offerings constantly brought to him as a god. So Job realized, man, there was some idolatrous worship going on, some heathen worship. Then I pondered and said to myself, is this he who made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all of us? How will I know the truth? And in that night, as I lay asleep, a voice came and called, Jobab, Jobab, rise up, and I will tell you who is the one whom you wish to know. This, however, to whom the people bring burnt offerings and libations is not Yah, but this is the power and the work of the seducer by which he deceives the people. Think about that. Man, shout out to my Ak purists out there, because we have some great fellowship throughout the week, and it's the highlight of my day. And I said, man, imagine if we did what the word says and go tear down and break all of their idols in their temples. Think about how the world that says that they will believe and says that they know him, think about how they would receive that. Would they receive that in rejoicing, or would they persecute you? You make headlines. Take one of them good heavy sledgehammers to all of this idolatrous worship. They'll try to put you under the jail. Verse 13, and when I heard this, I fell on the earth and I prostrated myself, saying, O my Lord, who speaks for the salvation of my soul, please, if this is the idol of Satan, please let me go on and destroy it and purify this spot. Man, please let me go destroy it. Whew. For there is none that can forbid me doing this, as I am the king of this land, so that those that live in it will no longer be led astray. And the voice that spoke out of the flame answered to me, you can purify this spot, but behold, I announce to you what the Lord ordered me to tell you, for I am the chief messenger of Yah. And I said, whatever will be told to his servant, I will hear. And the chief messenger said unto me, thus speaks the Lord, if you undertake to destroy and take away the image of Satan, he will set himself with wrath to wage war against you, and he will display all his malice against you. Man, this is why when you are walking in righteousness, man, Satan, Hasatan, the adversary, is gonna launch everything he has at you. 9mm, 22, 5.56, 300 Creedmoor, blackout, 7.62. He's launching everything. I'm talking about heavy artillery, because you're doing the will of the Most High. Job was begging to do this. And he let him know, I want you to know that if you set out to do this, Hasatan is going to wage war. He's going to spiritually wear you out. 21, he will bring on you many severe plagues and take from you all that you have. You got to think about the worldly rich men today. You got to think about your walk. If the Most High Yah told you, man, you can do it, but Hasatan's going to raise up and rear his ugly head, something so ugly, something so sinister, would that stop you? Or would you continue to go forth? He will take away your children and will inflict many calamities on you. Then you must wrestle like an athlete and resist pain. sure of your reward, and overcome trials and affliction. But when you endure, I will make your name renowned throughout all generations of earth until the very end of the world. And I will restore to you all that you had, and the double part of what you will lose will be given to you, in order that you may know Yah does not consider the person, but gives to each who deserves the good. And also to you will it be given, and you will put on a crown of amaranth. And at the resurrection, you will awaken for continuous life. Then you will know that the Lord is just and true and mighty. Immediately, my children replied, I will from the love of Yah endure all that will come unto me until death, and I will not shrink back. Then the messenger put his seal on me and left me. That's heavy. Knowing a test is coming. You know, oftentimes we can get in a mindset of trying to avoid tests. Job was basically saying, man, I want the smoke. I'm standing on faith, standing on business, standing on truth. I'm not a servitude by just giving lip service. I'm a servant by action. Chapter 2. After this, I rose up in the night and took 50 slaves and went to the temple of the idol and destroyed it to the ground. Think about it. Think about if you said, hey, just think about this. Somebody call you up. Hey, man, I'm thinking about going to that place down the street where they do that idol worship. I'm taking my sledgehammer. Take your hammer, take your mallet. Who's with me? Job brought 50 slaves. And so I went back to my house and gave orders that the door should be firmly locked, saying to my doorkeepers, if somebody will ask for me, bring no report to me, but tell him, he investigate urgent affairs. He is inside. Then Satan disguised himself as a beggar and knocked heavily at the door, saying to the doorkeeper, report to Job and say that I desire to meet him. Man, Satan didn't disguise himself as a working man, but a beggar. The word talks about not giving to the beggar because they are faithless, they are lawless, they refuse to work. And Satan disguised himself as somebody like that. Report to Job and say that I desire to meet him. And the doorkeeper came in and told me that, but heard from me that I was studying. The evil one, having failed in this, went away and took on his shoulders an old torn basket and went in and spoke to the doorkeeper, saying, tell Job, give me bread from your hands that I may eat. And when I heard this, I gave her burnt bread to give it to him, and I made known to him, do not expect to eat of my bread, for it is forbidden to you. But the doorkeeper, being ashamed to hand him the burnt and ashy bread, as she did not know that it was Satan, took off her own fine bread and gave it to him. But he took it, and knowing what occurred, said to the maiden, go on, bad servant, and bring me the bread that was given you to hand to me. And the servant cried and spoke in grief, you speak truth, saying that I am a bad servant, because I have not done as I was instructed by my master. And he turned back and brought him the burnt bread and said to him, thus saith my Lord, you will not eat of my bread anymore, for it is forbidden to you. And he gave me this in order that the charge may not be brought against me, that I did not give to the enemy who asked. And when Satan heard this, he sent the servant back to me, saying, as you see this bread all burnt, so I will soon burn your body to make it like this. And I replied, do you Do what you desire to do and accomplish whatever you plot. I ain't worried about it. Go ahead. For I am ready to endure whatever you bring on me. Woo, man. That's some real faith right there. He's not being arrogant. He's confident. Confident going into the test. I'm gonna survive this. These plagues, everything you about to take from me, losing my family, losing my wife, I'm ready for it. Job was 10 toes down. And when the devil heard this, he left me and walked up to under the highest heaven. He took from the Lord the oath that he might have power over all my possessions. And after having taken away the power, and after having taken the power, he went and instantly took away all my wealth. Man, you got to think about that. Just imagine if you woke up tomorrow and you've been asking the Most High Yah, to see you as worthy. You've been wanting to prove yourself as righteous. You wake up and your car done caught on fire. Your bank account then hit zero. You no longer got these titles. You no longer got these status. How you responding to that? How are you going to respond to that? Chapter 3, for I had 130,000 sheep, and of these I separated 7,000 for the clothing of orphans and widows, and of the needy and sick ones. I had a herd of 800 dogs who watch my sheep, and beside these 200 to watch my house. And I had 9 mills working for the whole city and ships to carry goods. And I sent them into every city and into the villages, to the feeble and to the sick, and to those that were unfortunate. And I had 340,000 nomadic donkeys, and of these I set aside 500, and the offspring of these I ordered to be sold, and the proceeds to be given to the poor and the needy. So Job wasn't just when modern day Thanksgiving come around, he just wasn't giving out 100 turkeys in front of the people to be seen as righteous. No, Job was making sure that the poor truly had what they needed. For from all the lands the poor came to meet me. For the 4 doors of my house were open, each being in charge of a watchman who had to see whether they were any people coming asking for alms, and whether they would see me sitting at one of the doors so that they could leave through the other and take whatever they needed. I also had 30 immovable tables set at all hours for strangers alone. And I also had 12 tables spread for the widows. Woo! Doesn't it say that pure religion, undefiled before the Most High Yah, is to cover the widows and the orphans? To keep oneself unspotted from the world? Man, starting to ring a bell. Job was living that. And if anyone came asking for alms, he found food on my table to take all he needed. And I turned nobody away to leave my door with an empty stomach. I also had 3,500 yokes of oxen, and I selected of these 500 and had them tend to the plowing. And with these I had done all the work in each field by those who would take it in charge, and I laid aside the income of their crops for the poor on their table. I also had 50 bakeries from which I sent the bread to the table for the poor. And I have slaves selected for their service. There were also some strangers who saw my goodwill. They wished to serve as waiters themselves. Others, being in distress and unable to obtain a living, came with the request saying, please, since we can also fill this office of servants and have no possession, have pity on us and advance us money to us in order that we may go into the great cities and sell merchandise. Man, Job had it going on in a worldly sense and in a righteous sense. And the surplus of our profit we may give as help to the poor, and then we will return to you your own money. And when I heard this, I was glad that they should take this altogether from me for the farming of charity for the poor. And I gave them what they wanted with a willing heart, and I accepted their written bond. So you see Job, this is an example of Job giving them a loan, an interest-free loan. Man, you want to do good work? Here you are. Written bond. We got a written agreement, but would not take any other security from them except the written document. Man, Job wasn't expecting to say, what kind of assets you got? Man, that's a nice wagon you got. That's a nice car you got. I'm going to need that on top. I'm going to need some collateral. Nope. And they went abroad and gave to the poor as far as they were successful. Frequently, however, some of their goods were lost on the road or on the sea, or they were robbed of them. Then they would come and say, please act generously towards us in order that we may see how we can restore you to your own. And when I heard this, I had sympathy with them, and I handed their bond to them, and often having read it before them, tore it up and released them of their debt, saying to them, what I have consecrated for the benefit of the poor, I will not take from you. And so I accepted nothing from my debtor. Man, woo. Think about how many wealthy people today that will see you struggling. They're gonna tear up this bond. They're gonna tear up this agreement. Nope, Job did. Job set them free. And when a man with cheerful heart came to me saying, I am not in need to be compelled to be a paid worker for the poor, but I wish to serve the needy at your table. And he consented to work, and he ate his share. So I gave him his wages nevertheless, and I went home rejoicing. And when he did not wish to take it, I forced him to do so, saying, I know that you are a laboring man who looks for and waits for his wages, and you must take it. I never deferred paying the wages of the hireling or any other, nor kept back in my house for a single evening his hire that was due to him. Those that milk cows and the ewes signaled to the passers by that they should take their share, for the milk flowed in such plenty that it curdled into butter on hills and by the roadside and by the rocks and the hills the cattle lay, which have given birth to their offspring. For my servants grew weary, keeping the meat of the widows and the poor, dividing it into small pieces. Man, Job was covering some people. You talking about a true shepherd, a true spiritual covering. For they would curse and say, oh, that we had of this flesh, that we could be satisfied. Although I was very kind to them. I also had 6 harps and 6 slaves to play the harps, and also a sarita and a decacord, and I struck it during the day. Man, I want you to think about slavery in Deuteronomy 28. I want you to think about modern day slavery. I want you to think about how Job treated his slaves versus how the heathen were given guidelines via the book, but they didn't follow them. They didn't follow them. Job was an example of how to manage slaves according to the Bible, servants. And I took this Aretha, and the widows responded after their meals. And with the musical instrument, I reminded them of Yah, that they should give praise to the Lord. Job wasn't trying to seek the praise. Job wasn't saying, look at me, I did this, I fed you, I got the power. Job was reminding them, hey, don't forget, who is doing all this through me. And when my maidservants would murmur, then I took the musical instruments and played as much as they would have done for their wages, and gave them respite from their labors and sighs. And my children, chapter 4, and my children, after having taken charge of the service, took their meals each day along with their 3 sisters, beginning with the older brother, and made a feast. And I rose in the morning and offered 50 rams and 19 sheep as a sin offering for them. And what remained as a residue was consecrated to the poor. And I said to them, take these as residue and pray for my children. Perhaps my sons have sinned before the Lord, speaking in haughtiness of spirit. We are children of this rich man. All these goods are ours. Why should we be servants to the poor? So Job had some sons that was entitled. They was prideful off of the work that their father was doing. And we see in the book of Job that he gave an offering, a smoke offering, on behalf of his children. And speaking thus in a haughty spirit, they may have provoked the anger of Yah, for the overbearing pride is an abomination before the Lord. So I brought oxen as an offerings to the priests at the altar, saying, may my children never think evil towards Yah in their hearts. While I lived in this manner, the seducer could not bear to see the good I did, and he demanded warfare of Yah against me. And he came on me cruelly. First, he burned up the large number of my sheep. Man, let me tell you something. Man, I have to find it. You know, living on a homestead, learning how to raise livestock, raising, chickens. Man, when a chicken die, I have to find it in my heart to say, praise Yah. Praise Yah. You didn't spend time feeding it, taking it from a young chick, putting some weight on it, putting some hips on it, and you go out there and you done lost one. You have to find it. Have to find it, baby. Praise Yah. Praise Yah. Large number on my sheep, then the camels. Then he burned up the cattle and all my herds, or they were captured not only by enemies, but also by such as received benefits from me. And the shepherds came and announced that to me. But when I heard it, I gave praise to Yah and did not blaspheme. Ooh. Man, this is what Job didn't turn away from living an agricultural life. A lot of people, you lose, one animal, you be ready to give up. You be like, man, this ain't it, man. I didn't sign up for this. I'm here today to tell you signed up for it. And when the seducer learned of my fortitude, Job had what we call intestinal fortitude. He plotted new things against me. He disguised himself as the king of Persia and besieged my city. And after he had left off all that were therein, he spoke to them in malice, saying in boastful language, this man Job, who has attained all the goods of the earth and left nothing for others, has destroyed and torn down the temple of Yah. So he tried to flip the script by telling people that Job, who was very wealthy, tore down the temple of the Most High. Therefore, I will repay to him what he has done to the house of the great God. Now come with me, and we will plague all that is left in his house. And they answered and said to him, he has 7 sons and 3 daughters. Take heed lest they flee into other lands, that they may become our tyrants, and then come over us with a force and kill us. And he said, do not be afraid at all. I have destroyed his flocks and his wealth by fire, and I have captured the rest. And behold, I will kill his children. And having spoken thus, he went and threw the house on my children and killed them. And my fellow citizens, seeing that what was said by him had become true, came and pursued me and robbed me of all that was in my house. Man, imagine doing, the Lord's work to the people. And in Hasatan, turning the people against you. The same people that you was employed, that you was blessed, given to, turned against you. And I saw with mine own eyes the pillage of my house, and men without culture and without honor sat at my table and on my couches, and I could not remonstrate against them. For I was exhausted like a woman with her loins let loose from multitude of pains, remembering chiefly that this warfare had been predicted to me by the Lord through his messenger. And I became like one who, when seeing the rough sea and adverse winds, while the lading of the vessel in mid oceans is too heavy, cast the burdens into the sea, saying, I wish to destroy all this only in order to come safely into the city, so that I may take as profit the rescue ship and the best of my things. Thus I managed my own affairs. But there came another messenger and announced to me the ruin of my own children, and I was shaken with terror. And I tore my clothes and said, the Lord has given and the Lord has taken, as has deemed best to the Lord. Thus it has come to be. May the name of the Lord be blessed. This is after he lost his kids. Still praising Yah. This is what you call rejoicing through the tribulation. Rejoicing through the tribulation. Chapter 5. And when Satan saw that he could put me to despair, he went and asked the Lord for my body in order to inflict plague on me. For the evil one could not bear my patience. Woo! Job had the fruit of the Spirit, patience, long suffering. Then the Lord delivered me into his hands to use my body as he wanted, but he gave him no power over my soul. Hey, you can do what you want to that flesh, but his soul, you don't have no power over. And he came to me as I was sitting on my throne, still mourning over my children. And he resembled a great hurricane and turned over my throne and threw me on the ground. And I continued laying on the floor for 3 hours. Man, Hasatan basically WWE Job to try to penetrate that flesh. And he struck me with a hard plague from the top of my head to the toes of my feet. And I left the city in great terror and woe and sat on a dunghill, my body being worm eaten. Man, imagine when you say, man, my life is shit. Think about that. Job had justification. He was sitting on a hill of shiza, of shit, dunghill. And I wet the earth with my moistness of my sore body, for matter flowed off my body, and many worms covered it. And when a single worm crept off my body, I put it back, saying, remain on the spot where you have been placed until he who has sent you will order you elsewhere. Imagine worms crawling on you, one fall off. You grab it, put it, man, they must have thought Job was crazy. Grab the worm, put it back on you. Don't go nowhere until the one who sent you has sent you elsewhere. Thus I endured for several years, sitting on a dunghill. Man, that's bad enough to endure this for a day. He went through this several years. What kind of tribulation you didn't have like that? Thus I endured for several years, sitting on a dunghill outside of the city while being plague stricken. And I saw with my own eyes my longed for children carried by the messengers to heaven. And my humbled wife, who had been brought to her bridal chamber in such great luxuriousness and with spearmen as bodyguards. I saw her do a water carrier's work like a slave in the house of a common man in order to win some bread and bring it to me. You lost your wife. You was once in charge. You was once in rule. Now your wife is going to work for another man to bring you some food as you sit in this heap of dung. And in my sore affliction, I said, oh, that these braggart city rulers, whom I should not have thought to be equal with my shepherd dogs, should now employ my wife as a servant. And after this, I took courage again. Yet afterwards, they withheld even bread, that she should only have her own nourishment. People turned against him. Oh, we'll give your wife some bread, but you? No, you ain't getting no bread. But she took it and divided it between herself and me, saying woefully, woe to me. Very soon he may no longer have bread to eat, and he cannot go to the market and ask for bread from the bread sellers in order to bring it to me that he may eat. And when Satan learned this, he took the guys off the bread seller, and it was as if by chance that the wife met him and asked him for bread, thinking that it was that sort of man. But Satan said to her, give me the value and then take what you wish. Immediately she answered and said, where will I get money? Do you not know what misfortune happened to me? If you got to think, man, being at this pivotal point, look where Hasatan inserted himself in conversation with the woman again. If you have pity, show it to me. If not, you will see. And he replied, saying, if you do not deserve this misfortune, you would not have suffered all of this. Now, if there is no silver piece in your hand, give me the hair of your head and take 3 loaves of bread for it, so that you may live on these for 3 days. Man, think about the significance of a woman's hair. Her being in servitude, not in direct covering of her husband, engaging in conversation with Hasatan. I'm going to give you this bread, but I want you to sacrifice your hair as a woman. Then she said to herself, what is the hair of my head in comparison with my starving husband? And so after having pondered over the matter, she said to him, rise and cut off my hair. Then he took a pair of scissors and took off the hair of her head in the presence of all and gave her 3 loaves of bread. Then she took them and brought them to me, and Satan went behind her on the road, hiding himself as he walked and troubling her heart greatly. Man, you didn't give a sacrifice to Hasatan your hair in order to feed your husband. Hasatan's behind you. You shaking up. Chapter 6. And immediately my wife came near me and crying aloud and weeping. She said, Job, Job, how long will you sit on that dunghill outside of the city, still pondering for a while and expecting to obtain your hope for salvation? She was wearing thin. She's getting fed up. Cut off my hair to bring you this bread. Here you are, sitting on this dunghill, patient. And I have been wandering from place to place, roaming around as a hired servant. Behold, the memory has already died away from earth. And all my sons and the daughters that I carried in my bosom in the labors and the pains that I sustained have been for nothing. And you sit in the fetid state of soreness and worms, passing the nights in the cold air. And I have undergone all trials and troubles and pains day and night until I succeed in bringing bread to you. Here you are, Job, on this dunghill. I'm out here working, trying to feed your sorry butt. Job sitting on that dunghill, worms jumping off. Job, get back here, worm. I'm not done being tested. For your surplus of bread is no longer allowed to me. And as I can scarcely take my own food and divide it between us, I pondered in my heart that it was not right that you should be in pain and hunger for bread. And so I ventured to go to the market without bashfulness and went to the bread seller. And when the bread seller told me, give me money and you will have bread, I disclosed to him our state of distress. She wasn't talking to the bread seller. She was disclosing the level of distress they were experiencing to Hasatan. Ooh. Then I heard him say, If you have no money, hand me the hair off your head and take 3 loaves of bread in order that you may live on these for 3 days. And I yielded to the wrong. I yielded to the wrong. This is Job's wife. I knew it was wrong, but I yielded to it. And said to him, rise and cut off my hair. And he rose and in disgrace cut off with the scissors the hair of my head on the marketplace while the crowd stood by and wondered. Imagine that, man. Look at the status he had. Wealthy man. Not only wealthy, but serving the people, servant leadership. To be brought to a point where Hasatan is dealing with your wife. And your wife's so eager to make sure you got bread. Think about this. Man shall not live by bread alone. She makes an agreement with Satan, knowing that it's wrong to bring you bread. Crowd stood by and wondered. Who would then not be astonished, saying, is this Sidus, the wife of Job, who had 14 curtains to cover her inner sitting room and doors within doors, so that he was greatly honored, who would be brought near her? And now behold, she barters off her hair for bread, who had camels laden with goods, and they were brought into the remote lands to the poor, and now she sells her hair for bread. Behold, her who had 7 tables immovably set in her house, at which each poor man and each stranger ate, and now she sells her hair for bread. Behold, her who had basin with which to wash her feet made of gold and silver, and now she walks on the ground and sells her hair for bread. Behold, her who had garments made of byssus interwoven with gold, and now she exchanges her hair for bread. Behold, her who had couches of gold and silver, and now she sells her hair for bread. In short term, then Job, after the many things that have been said to me, I now say in one word to you, since the feebleness of my heart has crushed my bones, rise then and take these loaves of bread and enjoy them, and speak some word against the Lord and die. Man, you talking about everybody coming against you? Everybody coming against you. There might be only one from each household that makes it. Job was that one. And you got to think about how he covered his kids and his wife, being that spiritually strong. For I too would exchange the torpor of death for the sustenance of my body. Woo. So I'd rather, I'd rather go against the Most High in order to feed this flesh. But I replied to her, behold, I have been plague stricken for these 7 years, and I have withstood the worms of my body, and I was not weighed down in my soul by all the pains. And as to the word which you say, speak some word against Yah and die. Together with you, I will sustain the evil which you see, and let us endure the ruin of all that we have. I'm not folded. Came too far to give up. Yet you desire that we should say some word against Yah, and that he should be exchanged for the great Pluto. Why do you not remember those great goods which we possessed? If the goods come from the lands of the Lord, should we not also endure evils and be high-minded in everything until the Lord will have mercy again and show pity to us? Do you not see the seducer stand behind you and confound your thoughts in order that you should deceive me? We're talking about everybody coming against you. And he turned to Satan and said, why do you not come openly to me? Ooh. Man, you didn't came and attack my kids. You didn't attack my wealth. You didn't attack this flesh. And now you didn't turn my wife against me. How come you didn't come directly to me? You using everybody else to try to break me. Why don't you come take a swing yourself? Stop hiding yourself, you wretched one. Does the lion show his strength in the weasel cage, or does the bird fly in the basket? I now tell you, go away and wage your war against me. Here we are again, standing boldly in faith. Hey, go, wage your war against me. I want that smoke. Job was not ducking no smoke. Then he went off from behind my wife and placed himself before me crying. And he said, behold, Job, I yield and give way to you who are but flesh, while I am spirit. You are plague stricken, but I am in great trouble. For I am like a wrestler contesting with a wrestler who has in single-handed combat torn down his antagonist and covered him with dust and broken every limb of his, whereas the other one who had lies beneath, having displayed his bravery, gives forth sounds of triumph, testifying his own superior excellence. Thus you, O Job, are beneath and stricken with the plague and pain, and yet you have carried the victory in this wrestling match with me. And behold, I yield to you. Then he left me embarrassed. Job put Hasatan to shame. Think about this: when you're facing your tribulation, you're facing your test. You cutting a deal with Hasatan, or you making Satan leave embarrassed? That's what this word does. When you start rejoicing through your tribulations, Hasatan leaves embarrassed. Now, my children, you must also show a firm heart in all the evil that happens to you, for the firmness of heart is greater than all things. Chapter 7. At this time, the king heard what had happened to me, and they rose and came to me, each from his land, to visit and comfort me. And when they came near, they cried with a loud voice, and each tore his clothes. And after they had prostrated themselves, touching the earth with their heads, they sat down next to me for 7 days and 7 nights, and none spoke a word. They were 4 in number: Eliphaz, the king of Teman, and Bildad, and Zophar, and Elihu. And when they had taken their seat, they conversed about what happened to me. Now, when they had come to me for the first time, and I had shown them my precious stones, they were astonished and said, if of us, the 3 kings, all our possessions would be brought together into one, it would not come up to be precious stones of Jobad's kingdom. So, letting you know the level of wealth that Job had, if these kings would have took all they had in comparison to what Job had, it wouldn't even came close. For you are of greater nobility than all the people of the east. And when therefore they now came to the land of Uz to visit me, they asked in the city, where is Jobab, the ruler of this whole land? And they told them concerning me, he sits on the dunghill outside of the city, for he has not entered the city for 7 years. That's a long tribulation. That is a long tribulation. And then they again inquired concerning my possessions. They were inquiring because that was his worth to them. Man, what happened to your mansion? Man, what happened to that Lamborghini you had? Man, last time we saw you, man, you had an iced out Jesus piece. What happened to that stuff? And then again, they inquired concerning my possessions, and there was revealed to them all what happened to me. And when they had learned this, they went out of the city with the inhabitants, and my fellow citizens pointed me out to them. But these remonstrated and said, surely this is not Job. They didn't even recognize him without his possessions. And while they hesitated, Eliphaz, the king of Teman, said, come, let us steep near and see. And when they came near, I remembered them, and I wept very much when I learned the purpose of their journey. And I threw earth on my head, and while shaking my head, I revealed to them that I was Job. And when they saw me shake my head, they threw themselves down on the ground, all overcome with emotions. And while their hosts were standing around, I saw that 3 kings lie on the ground for 3 hours like dead. Then they rose and said to each other, we cannot believe that this is Jobab. And finally, after they had acquired after everything concerning me and searched for my flocks and other possessions for 7 days, they said, do we not know how many goods were sent by him to the cities and the villages around to be given to the poor, aside from all that was given away by him within his own house? How then could he have fallen into such a state of perdition and misery? And after the 7 days, Elihu said to the kings, come, let us step near and examine him accurately. Let's get a little closer. Whether he is truly Jobab or not. And they, being not 4 stadia distant from his feeted body, rose and stepped near, carrying perfume in their hand. Imagine how Job smelt sitting on that dunghill. Rose and stepped near, carrying perfumes in their hand, while their soldiers went with them and threw fragrant incense around them so that they could come near me. That's funky. 7 years worth of funk. Plague. Imagine having sores on your body, open sores, and them smelling rotten flesh, worms eating your flesh. Soldiers coming and throwing perfume just to make it. It's almost like a gas attack. And after they had thus passed 3 hours, covering the way with aroma, they drew near. And Eliphaz began and said, are you indeed Job, our fellow king? Are you the one who owned the great glory? Are you he one shone like the sun of the day on the whole earth? Are you he who once resembled the moon and the stars, radiant throughout the night? And I answered him and said, I am. And thereon all wept and lamented, and they sang a royal song of lamentation, their whole army joining them in a chorus. And again, Eliphaz said to me, are you he who ordered 7,000 sheep to be given for clothing of the poor? Where then has the glory of your throne gone? So they were looking at him to have a material glory, a material, a possession type glory. Are you he who had ordered 3,000 cattle to do the plowing of the field for the poor? Where then has your glory gone? Are you he who had golden couches and now you sit on a dunghill? You talking about brought low? Brought low. Some people would turn against the Most High Yah if they just had to sit on the cold ground. Job was sitting on, imagine a pile of manure, and Job just sitting on there being tested. Where then has your glory gone? Are you he who had 60 tables set for the poor? Are you he who had censers for the fine perfume made of precious stones, and now you are in a fetid state? Where then has your glory gone? Are you he who had golden candelabras set on silver stands, and now must you long for the natural gleam of the moon? Where then has your glory gone? Are you the one who had ointment made of the spices of frankincense, and now you are in a state of repulsiveness? Where then has your glory gone? Are you he who laughed the wrongdoers and sinners to scorn, and now you have become the laughing stock to all? You talking about going from hero to zero in front of the people. Mike Jones said, when I'm hot, they all on me. Job sitting on this dunghill and they acting like they didn't know him. Where then has your glory gone? And when Eliphaz have cried and lamented for a long time, while the others joined him, so that the commotion was very great. I said to them, be silent, and I will show you my throne and the glory of its splendor. My glory will be everlasting. Man, I know you looking for me to have these mansions, this gold couch, these end tables, these lamps made with fine silver and gold, have all these nice cologne, the top smelling colognes for men. 2024. But let me show you my throne and the glory of its splendor. My glory will be everlasting. The whole world will perish and its glory will vanish. And all those who hold fast to it will remain beneath. But my throne is in the upper world, and its glory and splendor will be to the right of the Savior in the heavens. My throne exists in the life of the holy ones, and its glory in the imperishable world. For the rivers will be dried up, and their arrogance will go down to the depths of the abyss. But the streams of my land in which my throne is erected will not dry up, but will remain unbroken in strength. Imagine hearing this. You hearing somebody, life is in shambles, sitting on a dunghill, sitting on cow manure. The kings perish and the rulers vanish, and their glory and pride are as the shadows in the looking glass. But my kingdom lasts forever and ever, and its glory and beauty are in the chariot of my Father. Chapter 8. When I spoke thus unto them, Eliphaz became angry and said to the others, for what purpose is it that we have come here with our host to comfort him? Behold, he scolds them. Therefore, let us return to our countries. This man sits here in misery, worms eaten amiss, an unbearable state of petrification, and yet he challenges it, saying, saving, kingdoms will perish and their rulers, but my kingdom, he says, will last forever. Eliphaz then rose in great commotion, and turning away from them in great fury, said, I go on. We have indeed come to comfort him, but he declares war to us in view of our armies. But then Bildad seized him by the hand and said, one ought not to speak thus to an afflicted man, and especially to one stricken down with so many plagues. Behold, we being in good health, dare not to approach him on the account of his offensive odor, except with the help of plenty of fragrant aroma. But you, Elphanaz, are forgetful of all this. Let me speak plainly. Let us be magnanimous and learn what the cause is. Must he, in remembering his former days of happiness, not become mad in his mind? So here this man is strong in faith, sitting on this dunghill. Man, let us find out what the cause of this is. Man, I don't see how this man hasn't gone crazy, hasn't lost his mind. Who should not be altogether perplexed, seeing himself thus lapse into misfortune and plagues? But let me step near him, that I may find by what cause he is thus. And Balaam rose and approached me, saying, are you Job? And he said, is your heart still in good keeping? He wanted to know the state of his heart. And I said, I did not hold fast to earthly things, since the earth with all that inhabited is unstable. But my hearts hold fast to heaven, because there is no trouble in heaven. Then Bildad rejoined and said, we know that the earth is unstable, for it changes according to season. So here's Job on a dunghill ministering to these kings. They didn't know anything of this. At times it is in a state of peace, and at times it is in a state of war. But heaven, we hear that it is perfectly steady. But you are truly in a state of calmness. Therefore, let me ask and speak. And when you answer me to my first word, I will have a second question to ask. And if again you answer in well set words, it will be manifested that your heart has not been unbalanced. And he said, on what do you set your hope? And I said, on the living Yah. He didn't say, man, I hope to have my wealth restored. Man, if I could just get my mansion back, man, if I could just get them gold couches, man, my house was on MTV Cribs. He said, man, my hope is set on the living yacht. And he said to me, who deprived you of all that you possess? And who afflicted you with these plagues? And I said, Yah. And he said, if you still place your hope in Yah, how can he do no wrong in judgment, having brought on you these plagues and misfortunes, and having taken from you all your possessions? And since he has taken these, it is clear that he has given you nothing. No king will disgrace his soldier who has served him well as a bodyguard. And I answered, saying, who understands the depths of the Lord and his wisdom to be able to accuse Yah of injustice? Then Bildad said, answer me, O Job. To this, again, I say to you, if you are in a state of calm reason, teach me if you have wisdom. Why do we see the sun rise in the east and set in the west? And again, when rising in the morning, we find him rise in the east. Tell me your thoughts about this. Then I said, why will I betray the mighty mysteries of Yah? And should my mouth stumble in revealing things belonging to the master? Never. Man, you got to think about the conversation that was had with the Pharisees, the exchange of the Pharisees trying to figure out, how did Messiah have the wisdom that he had? Isn't he the son of a carpenter? How do you know these things? Tell me the wisdom that you got. Who are we that we should pry into matters concerning the upper world, while we are only flesh, no earth and ashes? In order that you know that my heart is sound, hear what I ask you. Through the stomach comes food, and water you drink through the mouth, and then it flows through the same throat. And when the two go down and become excrement, they again part. Who affects this separation? And Bildad said, I do not know. And I rejoined and said to him, if you do not even understand the exits of the body, how can you understand the celestial circuits? Then Zophar rejoined and said, we do not inquire after our own affairs, but we desire to know whether you are in a sound state. And behold, we see that your reason has not been shaken. What now do you wish that we should do for you? Behold, we have come here and brought the physicians of 3 kings, and if you wish that you may be cured by them. These kings brought the best doctor, the best physicians. Man, we brought some help. If you want to be cured, get you off this dunghill, help that flesh heal up, get rid of that odor. But I answered and said, my cure and my restoration comes from Yah, the maker of physicians. Chapter 9. And when I spoke thus to them, behold, there my wife sits, Sardis came running, dressing in rags from the service of the master by whom she was employed. As a slave, she had been forbidden to leave, lest the kings on seeing her might take her as captive. And when she came, she threw herself prostrate to their feet, crying, saying, remember, Eliphaz and you other friends, what I once was with you, and how I have changed, how I am now dressed to meet you. Woo, bowing down at the feet of the kings. You remember how fine I used to be. You remember that? Then the kings broke forth in great weeping, and being in double perplexity, they kept silent. But Eliphaz took his purple mantle and cast it around her to wrap her up with it. But she asked him, saying, I ask a favor of you, my lords, that you order your soldiers that they should dig among the ruins of our house which fell on my children, so that their bones could be brought in a perfect state to the tombs. For as we have, owing to our misfortune, no power at all, and so we may at least see their bones. For I have like a brute the mothering feeling of a wild beast, that my 10 children should have perished on one day, and I could not give a decent burial to one of them. And the kings gave order that the ruins of my house should be dug up, but I prohibited it, saying, do not go through the trouble in vain, for my children will not be found there. They are in the keeping of their maker and ruler. And the kings answered and said, who will deny that he is out of his mind and raised? Clinically crazy. That's what the world would have called Job. Oh, this man ain't gone crazy. For while we desire to bring the bones of his children back, he forbids us to do so, saying, they have been taken and placed in the keeping of their maker. Therefore, prove the truth to us. But I said to them, raise me that I may stand. And they lifted me, holding up my arms from both sides. And I stood upright and first pronounced the praise of Yah. And after the prayer, I said to them, look with your eyes to the east. And they looked and saw my children with crowns near the glory of the king, the ruler of heaven. And when my wife Sidis saw this, she fell to the ground and prostrated herself before Yah, saying, now I know that my memory remained with the Lord. And after she had spoken this, in the evening she went to the city, back to the master whom she served as a slave, and lay herself down at the manger of the cattle, and died there from exhaustion. And when her despotic master searched for her and did not find her, he came to fold of his herds, and there he saw her stretched out on the manger dead, while the animals around her were crying about her. And all who saw her wept and lamented, and the cry extended throughout the whole city. And the people brought her down and wrapped her up and buried her by the house which had fallen on her children. And the poor of the city made a great mourning for her and said, behold, this Sidis, who like in nobility and in glory is not found in any woman. Ah, she was not found worthy of a proper tomb. The dirge for her you will find in the record. Chapter 10. But Elphaz and those that were with him were astonished at these things, and they sat down with me, and replying to me, spoke in boastful words concerning me for 27 days. It's a lot of time that happened, over the course of 7 years of him going through this tribulation. They repeated it again and again that I suffered deservedly, thus for having committed many sins, and that there was no hope left for me. But I retorted to these men in zest of contention myself, and they rose in anger, ready to part in wrathful spirit. But Elihu conjured them to stay yet a little while until he would have shown what it was. For he said, you pass so many days allowing Job to boast that he is just, but I will no longer permit it. For from the beginning I continued crying over him, remembering his former happiness. But now he speaks boastfully, and in overbearing pride, he says that he has his throne in heavens. Therefore hear me, and I will tell you what the cause of his destiny is. Then, imbued with the spirit of Satan, Elihu spoke hard words, which were written down in the records left of Elihu. And after he had ended, Yah appeared to me in a storm and in the clouds, and spoke, blaming Elihu, and showed me that he who had spoken was not a man, but a wild beast. Ooh. So they came like friends, but they was really a wild beast. And when Yah had finished speaking to me, the Lord spoke to Eliphaz, you and your friends have sinned in that you have not spoken the truth concerning my servant Job. Therefore, rise up and make him bring a sin offering for you. Man, make him rise up and bring a sin offering for you, in order that your sins may be forgiven. Job was covering some people. For where it is not for him, I would have destroyed you. Man, if it wasn't for Job sitting on this dunghill, smelling funky, toes got fungus on them, talking about athlete's foot. I'm talking about athlete's foot you can smell. If it wasn't for him, I would have destroyed you. And so they brought to me all that belonged to a sacrifice, and I took it and brought a sin offering for them, and the Lord received it favorably and forgave them their wrong. Then when Elphaz, Balad, and Zophar saw that Yah had graciously pardoned their sin through his servant Job, but that he did not stoop to pardon Elihu, then Eliphaz began to sing a hymn. So one of the kings didn't get spared. While the others responded, their soldiers also joining while standing by the altar. And Eliphaz spoke thus: the sin is removed and our injustice gone, but Elihu, the evil one, will have no remembrance among the living. His luminary is extinguished and has lost its light. The glory of his lamp will announce itself for him, for he is the son of darkness and not of light. Woo! The doorkeepers of the place of darkness will give him their glory and beauty as share. His kingdom has vanished, his throne has decayed, and the honor of his stature in Hades. For he has loved the beauty of the serpent and the scales of the dragon. His gall and his venom belong to the northern one. For he did not own himself to the Lord, nor did he fear him, but he hated these whom he has chosen. Thus Yah forgot him, and the holy ones forsook him. His wrath and anger will be to him desolation, and he will have no mercy in his heart nor peace, because he had the venom of the adder in his tongue. Then the Lord is right, the Lord is righteous, and his judgments are true. With him there is no preference of person. So he didn't matter that you was a king. He didn't matter that the man had a lot of possessions, was wealthy, was high value in the world. He didn't care. For he judges all alike. Behold, the Lord comes. Behold, the holy ones have prepared. The crowns and the prizes of the victor preceded them. Let the saints rejoice and let their hearts exult in gladness, for they will receive the glory which is in store for them. Chorus: our sins are forgiven, our injustice has been cleansed, but Elihu has not remembrance among the living. So they're singing this song, and it's the chorus of it. After Elphaz had finished the hymn, we rose and went back to the city, each to the house where they lived, and the people made a feast for me in gratitude and delight of Yah, and all my friends came back to me. So you got to look at how much, he endured through this test. How much his friends wouldn't have been saved if it wasn't for his faith. And all those who had seen me in my former state of happiness asked me, saying, what are those three ones among us here? Chapter 11. But I, being desirous to take up my work of benevolence for the poor again, asked them, saying, give me each a lamb for the clothing of the poor in their state of nakedness, and 4 drachmas of silver or gold. Then the Lord blessed all that was left to me, and after a few days I became rich again in merchandise, in flocks, and all things which I had lost. And I received an all double number again. Then I also took your mother as a wife, and became the father of you 10 in place of the 10 children that had died. And now, my children, let me admonish you. Behold, I die. You will take my place. Only do not forsake the Lord. Be charitable towards the poor. Do not disregard the feeble. Do not take wives from the strangers yourself. Man, why not take wives from the strangers? Why not take wives from the heathen? Maybe because they would corrupt, the strong faith, the example that Job set for his 10 children. Behold, my children, I will divide what I possess among you, so that each may have control over his own and have full power to do good with his share. And after he had spoken thus, he brought all his goods and divided them among his 7 sons. But he gave nothing of his goods to his daughters. House and wealth are inherited from fathers. Think about this. Are we not? Then they said to their father, our Lord and Father, are we not also your children? Why then do you not also give us the share of your possessions? Then Job said to his daughters, do not become angry, my daughters. I have not forgotten you. Behold, I have preserved for you a possession better than that which your brothers have taken. And he called his daughters, whose name was Day, and said to her, take this double ring used as a key, and go to the treasure house and bring me the gold casket, that I may give you your possession. And she went and brought it to him, and she opened it and took out 3 stringed girdles, about the appearance of which no man can speak. For they were not earthly work, but celestial sparks of light flashed through them like the rays of the sun. And he gave 1 string to each of his daughters and said, put these as girdles around you, in order that all the days of your life they may encircle you and endow you with every good thing. And the other daughters, whose name was Keziah, said, is this the possession of which you say is better than that of our brothers? Now, how can we live on this? How are we supposed to survive on these girdles? And their father said to them, not only do you have here what is sufficient to live on, but these bring you into a better world to live in the heavens. Or do you not know, my children, the value of these things here? Here then, when the Lord has deemed me worthy to have compassion on me and to take the plagues and worm off my body, he called me and handed these 3 strings to me. And he said to me, rise and gird up your loins like a man. I will demand of you, and you will declare it to me. And I took them and girt them around my loins, and immediately the worms left my body. Job was giving them something that ensured that they were covered, that they were protected. They didn't see the value in it. Think about that. Think about how the Most High Yah gives you his word. Think about before you was born again. You didn't see the word as protection. You didn't see it as a covering, having it stored up in your heart. And the worms left my body, and likewise the plagues in my whole body took new strengths through the Lord, and thus I passed on as though I had never suffered. But I also forgot the pain in my heart. Then the Lord spoke to me in his great power and showed to me all that was and will be. Now then, my children, in keeping these, you will not have the enemy plotting against you, nor evil intentions in your mind, because this is a charm from the Lord. Rise then and gird these around you before I die, in order that you may see the messengers come at my parting, so that you may behold with wonder the powers of Yah. Then the one whose name was Day rose and girded herself, and immediately she departed her body as her father had said, and she put on another heart. Ooh. As if she had never cared for earthly things. She went from saying, Daddy, how come you gave my brothers all this stuff, but you ain't gave us nothing? Job says, take this key. Go get that gold casket. I got something in there for you. He gave them these strings. They looked at it. She said, what is this? You mean to tell me this is what you had? And here it is. When she puts it on, she gains a new heart. And she sang angelic hymns in the voice of messengers, and she chanted forth the angelic praise of Yah while dancing. Then the other daughter, Keziah by name, put on the girdle, and her heart was transformed. Woo! Man, Job's daughters is being born again, so that she no longer wished for worldly things. And her mouth assumed the dialect of the heavenly rulers, and she sang doxology of the word of the high place. And if anyone wishes to know the works of heaven, he may take an insight into the hymns of Keziah. Then the other daughter, by the name of Almithah's horn, girt herself, and her mouth spoke in the language of those on high, for her heart was transformed, being lifted above worldly things. She spoke in the dialect of cherubim, singing the praise of the ruler of the cosmic powers and extolling their or his glory. And he who desires to follow the vestiges of the glory of the Father will find them written down in the prayers of Almithah's horn. Chapter 12, this is the final chapter right here. After these 3 had finished singing hymns, I, Nawar, brother of Job, sat down next to him as he lay down, and I heard the marvelous things of the 3 daughters of my brother, one always succeeding the other amidst awful silence. And I wrote down this scroll containing the hymns, except the hymns and signs of the holy word, for these were great things of Yah. And Job laid down from sickness on his couch, yet without pain or suffering, because his pain did not take strong hold of him on the account of the charm of the girdle which he had wound around himself. But after 3 days, Job saw the holy messengers come for his soul, and instantly he rose and took the Sarethra and gave it to his daughter Day. And he gave a censer to Keziah, and he gave the timbrel to Amethil's horn, in order that he might bless the holy messengers who came for his soul. And they took these and sang, and they played on the psaltery, and praised and glorified Yah in the holy dialect. And after this he came, he who sits on the great chariot, and kissed Job. Man, boy, well done. Well done, my good and faithful servant. While his 3 daughters looked on, but the others did not see. And he took the soul of Job, and he soared upward, taking her, the soul, by the arm, and carrying her on the chariot. He went towards the east. His body, however, was brought to the grave, while the 3 daughters marched ahead, having put on the girdles and singing hymns in the praise of Yah. Then Noah, his brother, and his 7 sons, with the rest of the people and the poor and the orphans and the feeble ones, held a great mourning over him, saying, Woe to us! For today the strength of the feeble, the light of the blind, the father of the orphans has been taken from us. The receiver of strangers has been taken. You got to think about how you're supposed to treat a stranger. You talking about the love of Yah being carried out through Job? Job didn't have no hardness in his heart towards strangers. The leader of the earring, the cover of the naked, the shield of the widows, who should not mourn for the man of Yah? And as they were mourning in this and in that form, they would not permit him to be put into the grave. After 3 days, however, he was finally put in the grave, like one in sweet slumber, and he received the name of the beautiful, who will remain renowned throughout all generations of the world. He left 7 sons and 3 daughters, and there were no daughters found on earth as fair as the daughters of Jacob. You talking about righteously fine, good lookers. The name of Job was formerly Jabab, and he was called Job by the Lord. He had lived 85 years before his plague, and after the plague, he took the double share of all. Hence, he also doubled his years, which were 170 years. Thus, he lived 255 years altogether. So, when Job faced these great tribulations, he was 85 years old. Think about the average 85-year-old today. Withered up, 85 years old, sitting on this dunghill, fighting righteously in faith like a young buck. He had lived 85 years before his plague, and after the plague, he took the double share of all. Hence, he also doubled his years, which were 175 years. Thus, he lived 255 years altogether, and he saw sons of his sons to the 4th generation. It is written that he will rise up with those whom the Lord will reawaken. To our Lord be the glory. Amen. Man, so this right here gets a lot more concrete into the life of Job, the different aspects of how people turned against him. Man, and not once did Job, transgress or go against the will of the Most High. Job was even so just that the Most High told him to give an offering on behalf of his friends. Job got tested, didn't lose faith, and had all restored. Got back double. Man, you have to ask yourself, man, are you truly doing everything you can to strengthen your walk? Because if you are truly walking in truth, filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, man, today's message is a testimony that Hasatan is going to wage war against you. Messiah said, you will face persecution for my name's sake. Before the world hated you, they hated me. Job had everybody turn against him. His kids sinned. His wife tried to manipulate him and they're going against the Most High. Job having nothing, smelling funky, smelling like dumpster juice. 85 years old, stood 10 toes down. Man, all praise to the Most High for being able to deliver you this message today. Man, I hope I've said something to encourage you, to edify you, to increase your knowledge. Man, I hope you truly enjoy this Sabbath rest. Let's go to the comments. Shabbat Shalom, Noah Joshua. We got the Covenant Homestead. Shabbat Shalom, Maurice Delva. Shabbat Shalom. We have Melanie Howie. Shabbat Shalom. Let's see. Jamie Durant. Shabbat Shalom. Bram Stokes. Shabbat Shalom. Let's see who else we got. McCoy White. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in today. Man, I don't know if you know it, but these days are numbered. And you might want to get right. You might want to make sure, you are replenished. When you get weak on your walk by facing these tribulations, these attacks of Hasatan, you got to get in the word and find out how those before you survived it. Because this is a great example of righteousness being carried out. Great example. Man, the day of judgment is near. Repent for your sins. The king is coming. Go in peace. Go in love. Shabbat Shalom.